Have you ever wondered how all these beautiful websites are made? You can see a website, you see colors, you see everything, you see the layout, and everything is aesthetically arranged, pleasing to the eyes. Have you ever wondered how all those things are made? Today, I am going to introduce you to CSS. And CSS is Cascading Style Sheet, and that is CSS in HTML. CSS in HTML. So how do we bring CSS in HTML? HTML is the actual language that we use in building a website structure, but we need to beautify the website using CSS. And that's what I want to introduce you. Hey, if you're watching me for the first time, my name is Casey. I am a software engineer, and my intention is to make sure that I make coding simplified. I make it very easy to understand, and I also try to make sure that I help one or two persons around the world to earn a living with these programming skills. Okay, so now CSS. What is CSS? CSS is Cascading Style Sheet. Cascading Style Sheets. So that's CSS, Cascading Style Sheet. And just like I told you, it beautifies this is the 4 minutes, it beautifies the website. And that's what we want to actually discuss. And the first thing I'm going to discuss is the syntax of CSS. So CSS syntax. CSS syntax. So when we say syntax, what do we mean? We mean the rules, the format, the way we write this CSS. And that's what I want to introduce you to. And if you want to write CSS, what we write is what we call rules, and I'm going to show you what a rule is. So now, a rule is in this signature. You have the selector here, and the selector actually defines the HTML element that you want to style. It might be a container containing your picture or images. It might be a container containing a box of text and stuff like that. Then the next thing you do is that you now type the open curly brace, and when you do that, the next thing should be close curly brace. Yes, this is what we call a rule. But ordinarily, we don't do this because we expect so many things to be inside of this, and because of that, we break it to the next line somewhere here so that we can do something here. And what do we do here? We write pairs of stuff. And what's the stuff? The stuff is the property, colon, then the value, semicolon, right? And then this is what you write, property, continue writing here, value, semicolon, and then you do that, and then property, value, semicolon. So this is all we do in CSS. So easy, right? Yeah, you know, sometimes when I say that coding is easy, some people try to argue with me. But yeah, I know coding is not like very easy. Everything in life is not very easy. Nothing good comes easy. But I know that if you actually pay attention to syntax of programming, programming is simpler than we think. So now, this is the syntax. You know that you need a selector here, then a space, then this, and all. Okay, anyways, this space and all these things we're writing is not actually saying if the code is going to work, but is making this code readable and maintainable. So you do it like this, right? To be, even when you look at it, you'll be like, okay, you understand what is going on. Even if I write all these things in one single line, it is going to work, but we don't do it like that. Okay, so yeah. So from here entirely, this thing I have written is called CSS rule, right? This is CSS rule, right? Then a pair of property and value separated with colon and ended with semicolon is what we call the CSS declaration. CSS declaration. This is a declaration. So it means that you can see 3 visible declarations, but I'm telling you that you can have as many as you want right here. Okay, so that is it. So if I want to write real code, this is just like a kind of pseudocode telling you what you're expected to do. So if I want to write real code that is in this form, what do I do? I'm going to clean this up. Okay. So let's say my H1, I want to style my H1. That is the title of my web page. And probably I want to make it bigger, and you want to make it color red. And also I want it to be at the center of the web page. So what do I do? Now I have to select the H1 by calling the H1 right here. This is the H1, that's the selector. And then I open the curly brace. Then I come here, I say I need the color, which is the property, and then I do a colon. Then the value is red, that is the value I want to give the color, and then I do semicolon. The next thing we do is the font size, and then what do I give it? I give it like 2 RAM. That is double the natural size. Then what again did we say? Okay, we talked about making it at the be at the center of the web page. What do I do that? I will say text align, and then I say center. And then I do this. Then I end this curly brace. Sorry. Yeah, I end it here. So this is a rule, and that's just what we do, right? Any H1 that we find, even though we are supposed to have only one H1 in a web page, so yeah, the H1 we have the color red, the font size will be bigger, and then the aligning of the text will be at the center of the web page. That's what this code means. Right? It's very simple and very easy. So it's just for us to know what are the CSS properties that we know and what are the possible values that we can give to it. I think that's just the main thing that you study when you're learning CSS. Okay, so now we have different methods of bringing in CSS in our code. So methods right now, methods. So what are different methods that we can use in bringing CSS in our HTML? So now, what do? We have 3 different methods of writing CSS in our HTML code. Yeah, the number 1 is what we call the inline styling. Oh yeah, say the inline styling. And then number 2 is the internal styling. And then number 3 is the external styling. Sorry. So those are 3 different ways that we can actually write CSS in our HTML. Please, if you don't understand HTML, we've been taking this lesson and then we have different parts. If you watch the list of tutorials I have had, you can see part 1, part 2, part 3 in that way. So you can start from the beginning. But if you know coding before, but you just want to grab this lesson, you're good to go. All right. So now, inline styling, let's treat inline styling. How do you do inline styling? Okay, when you want to use inline styling, so we go for inline. So let's say you have the H1 here, right? In your code, you have H1, and then you say mathematics, that's what you have, mathematics as the heading, and then you end the H1 in this way. How do I style this? Probably make it the way the other one, what we gave in our example, color red and stuff like that. What do? I will use an attribute. So when you talk about inline, you should be talking about the style attributes. The style attribute. So that's what we use in inline styling, the style attribute. So I need an attribute here. If you don't know about attributes, you can go back to a previous lesson. Okay, so now how do I do that? I will now say, okay, let me come to this side so that this will accommodate in one single line, H1, and then I give a space, and then I give the style attribute, style, and then equals, I open this. So what I should have inside here as the value of the style attribute is CSS declarations, like I showed you. That is payoff property and value. That's what I keep writing in a single line, and that will be applied to this H1. So I can now say color colon red semicolon, and then I say font size dash size. I'm going to tell you about cases that we use in programming. That will be a different lesson. So, but this is how we write font size. You write the first word dash second word small letters. Font size, I will say colon 2 RAM and then semicolon. I can end it here, and then I end the close angle brackets. Remember, all these things I'm writing it right here. So that's why after giving a space to write all these things, I still close this one. Okay, so now I have done that. Then our mathematics will be here, and then I close off the H1. This is what we call inline styling, right on the element using the style attribute. As simple as that. Remember, we're going to check all these things. We're going to use computer to do all these things practical, and then you see it at work. Okay, so now that's inline styling. I'm going to go to internal styling. So now in internal styling, we use the style, not attribute now, but the style element. Style elements. So how do we do that? So if we want to use the style element, we put it right in the head. So the style element is a child element to the head element. So now this is the head element, for example. Head element, and then the head element is ending somewhere here. Head element. So then I should have the style element. So we have style attribute, we have style elements. Note that. So then style element. Then in this style, inside this style, as the child of the style, what I will write is CSS rules. I showed you an example of CSS rule. You can have as many CSS rules as you want if you're writing it, but this is one example of where we write CSS rules. So here I can just say H1, and then I open curly brace, and then I say color, and then I can say green or whatever, semicolon, and then just one declaration that I want. I can end it, and then I can do another one, paragraph. I open curly brace, and then I say font size dash size. I can say 2 RAM, and then I just want declaration for that, and then I close off the curly brace. You can see I have the first rule, I have the second rule. I can have as many rules as I want right inside the style element, and this is what we call the internal styling of CSS. I hope you understand that. Please, if you have any question, please, I'm waiting for you in the comment section. I can't wait. I want to talk programming. I want to talk coding. I love it. Okay, so yeah, so that's it. Okay, this is how you do it in the head. That should be the style element, and then the content of the style element is what? CSS rules, and this is what we call what? Internal styling. That's why we say we use what? The style element. So the third one is the external styling. So in external styling, what do? We use the link element. So the link element is what we use when we want to do external styling. How do we do that? Back to the head element. So both internal and external styling is in the head element. So now the link will be a child of the head element. So now we have the head, and then the head is closing here, and then right here we have the link element. So the link element is actually an empty element. I told you about empty elements, an element that doesn't have content. Neither does it have the end tag. So we don't have end tag or anything in between the end tag and start tag here. We only have the start tag. That's empty elements. I think I have also talked that before. Okay, so now what we do is that we give it attributes, and we have two main attributes that we give to the link element, and those are the rel attribute and the href attribute. Rel means relationship and href means hypertext reference. I think I've made mention of that before too. So yeah, so now as an attribute, I will have the rel equals open and close quote, and then I'll have the href equal open and close quote, and then I close off the angle bracket. So the question now is, what will be the values of these two attributes? So for the rel attributes, the value will be style sheet, because we are telling the browser that we are importing a file and it is actually a style sheet file, right? CSS. So now I will expand this again, and then in the rel, the value will be style sheet. I close it off, and then href, the value will now be the CSS file that you have. So in external styling, you must have had a file different from the HTML file that you're working on, that you have in your project, and you have written CSS rules inside it, and you want to link it to the HTML. That's why we call it external styling, because it's an external file. So now let's say the file is somewhere. I'm going to teach you file path. The file is somewhere, and the name of the file is styles.css. So every CSS file ends with .css. Then I'm closing off the angle bracket for the link element. Simple, right? So, and then if you can understand this I have done right now, if you can follow me and obey the rules, I'm telling you, you are a good software developer. That's how it starts. There is no other way. Paying attention to syntax, and that's it. Okay, so yeah, that's it. And that's all you need to know about how to write CSS. So the only thing that we need to pay attention to is what are the properties and the values for CSS language. Okay, so now that is it. And then I want to do a recap. What have I taught you? I've taught you, one is the CSS syntax and the CSS rule, and I say you have the selector, and then you open curly brace, and then you have the property that you want, and then you have the value, which could be red, and then you do semicolon. You can do other things, font size, and then you can say to RAM. Maybe you may not know all these things, but as we go, you will learn it. And then we close off all this. So this is where it's open, and then it is closing here. And this is what we call CSS rule. And a single line here is CSS declaration. A CSS declaration is a pair of property and value separated with colon and ended with semicolon. That is CSS declaration, and this is it. Then I also told you that we have 3 ways of writing CSS in HTML, and number one is inline styling, which uses the style attribute. The internal styling, which uses the style elements. Then 3 is the external styling. I hope you're still seeing what I'm writing. Let me change this marker. Sorry about that. So sorry. So number 3 is external styling, and that uses the link elements. Yeah, I believe you can see this. We've written it before. I believe you see it. I think that's just it. And then in the next lesson, I am going to show this practical using a computer, and then you can see how everything works. Okay, please, if you like what I do, show it by liking this lesson. You can share it, you can comment. Actually, all this helps to promote what I'm teaching and pass it to other people online, right? So if you watch and you say, oh, I like what this guy is doing, don't just say it. Not say it in your mind. Show it by liking the post, right? If you're watching me from YouTube, please subscribe and hit the bell button and then select all, so that each time I release a tutorial, you should be able to get a notification for that. Okay, all right. See you in the next one, where we're going to practicalize all these things. Bye. Have a nice day.